Exclusively on Secular Media Network, this is the Gaytheist Manifesto.
Hello and welcome to the Gaytheist Manifesto, your source for news, commentary, discussion, and debate at the intersection of the atheist movement and the LGBT rights movement. I am your host, Callie Wright, joined this week by my co-host, Ari Coleman.
Greetings, fairest Calliope.
Oh, that's good. I enjoy that. So,
that was my gentlemanly intro.
That's good. So before we jump into the show, we're going to have a really cool discussion today. We're going to talk to someone who is the parent of a trans child, kind of talk about their experiences and how that whole thing works when you're a parent. First, I wanted to mention, first of all, I wanted to say thank you. We've had, I do the shout out for the new patrons every week, but kind of wanted to give an extra special thanks because there's been quite a few new patrons over the last couple of weeks, and I just wanted to kind of do a live thing instead of the commercial and just say thanks to everyone who contributes to the show, because anyone who follows me on Facebook sees that I'm always traveling and going to conventions and giving talks and stuff like that. And the reality is you rarely get paid for those kinds of things unless you were a really,
what?
really
You mean
activists
person. Don't make a bunch of money?
Right, yeah, I know it's
that makes no sense to me.
This is the end of the innocence. But the reality is a lot of times it's tough to even get paid for travel expenses for those kind of things. So it's either, volunteer to come out of pocket or not do them, because, the fact is I'm not a famous activist. I'm just a person with some stuff to say, trying to do my best to say it in front of as many people as possible. So the reason that I have been able to do all of this is because of the support of our patrons. I haven't really used much of that cash to buy new gear or anything like that. It always goes into, a rental car, because I'm not trying to put thousands of miles on my car. Food while I'm out there, admission to conferences if I'm not speaking and I don't get in for free, that kind of stuff. So it goes very directly towards the activism and stuff that I do. So first, I wanted to say thank you to everyone. Even if you joined last week, or if you've been around since the page first launched, I sincerely appreciate it. And you guys are the reason that I'm able to do what I do with activism. And then I will also say, if you are not a contributor, might not be a bad idea. Just go ahead over, try it out. Try it out. Patreon.com/The Gaytheist Manifesto. You can pledge as little as $1 per episode, and believe me when I say that makes a difference, because if everyone that listened to the show gave $1, I would be a full-time activist tomorrow. So
that's like $4 or $5 a month. That's like less than Starbucks. Come on, right. You can do it.
So, thanks for even considering. Obviously, I know times are tough. Not everybody can afford that kind of stuff. I have been there plenty of times myself, so I totally understand. But I think a lot of people think that you have to give a ton of money for it to make a difference, and you really don't. As little as $1 a month, it really, really can make a difference, especially when it starts to add up over time, and a bunch of people do that. So check it out, patreon.com/The Gaytheist Manifesto. So that's the end of my pitch for money. So this week we are joined by one of the hosts of the Unbuckling the Bible Belt podcast, Sharon Bush. Sharon, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks.
Woo,
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
I need one of those applause buttons.
It'll just be me going, woo, yeah, woo.
I'm actually going to isolate that out, and that's going to be a thing. The first Gaytheist Manifesto drop. Thanks for that, Ari.
There you go.
So, Sharon, you reached out to me actually quite a while ago. It's been a while, in the workings getting you on the show here, wanting to share your experience as the parent of a trans child. And I purposely didn't ask you a lot of the details. I really don't know about anything about your situation or anything like that because I kind of wanted to find that out on the show so we can dig deep and ask the right questions. So why don't you just start by just telling me your story?
Well, my trans child still goes by Emma because she hasn't decided what she wants to be called yet. That's still in the works. So whenever I talk about Emma, that's who I'm talking about. She's known she was a boy ever since she was old enough to express herself. And I don't even mean with words. I mean with cries, because I would try to put a dress on her and she would say no, 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 and she would kick it off, and then she would go eventually pick up her brother's clothes and want to put those on. So I just started buying her clothes in the boys department, and she was really happy. And then
and can I ask how old she is now?
She's about to be 13.
Okay.
And she's just lived life as a boy ever since she's been a little baby. I mean, it's nothing strange for me. It's nothing weird. It's just very normal. What part of my story would you like to hear more about?
Well, I'm curious. You said it's nothing, it's nothing strange for you now. Was it at first? I mean, were there a lot of questions like what's going on here kind of thing at first?
At first there was, because I had a little girl, and I have two girls and a son. So I have one little girl who did all the little quote unquote, little girl things. She wanted to play with dolls, and she wanted to fix her hair, and she wanted to wear dresses. And so that was what I thought I was supposed to do with the little girl. And then Emma came along, and she completely broke the mold on that. So it was very strange at first, because I had raised a girl and I thought there was this certain way that girls were supposed to be. But whenever Emma let me know that she had her own ideas, it wasn't hard for me to accept that. It was just, okay, this is the way it's going to be. And I'm just going to accept it. It's okay. I'll just treat her like her brother.
And so you live in Georgia. We don't have to be more specific than that, but you live in Georgia, and I have to imagine that kind of adds a dimension to this, that like someone like myself who lives more in the northern part of the United States, where things tend to be at least slightly more liberal. I would think that would tend to add an extra dimension to things. I mean, have you had to fight against that kind of stuff?
Well, here's the thing, and I don't mind saying that I live in Augusta, and Augusta is old school Southern. You really don't talk about people to their face. You talk about them behind their back. That's the way.
Which is like good and bad, kind of,
yeah,
I guess, in a way.
Kind of, yeah.
I'm just over here nodding as a Southerner. Yeah.
You just, you talk about people, and you're really nice to their face, and you smile whenever you talk to them. So as far as having to deal with repercussions from Emma being like that, everybody has been pretty accepting. The fact that, she only right now wants to hang out with guys. She has a couple of girlfriends, but they're more like her. They're not girly girls, but she mainly has guy friends. The toughest thing has been parents aren't very accepting when Emma wants to have sleepovers with her guy friends. They are very, no, she's a girl. She can't sleep over. So we've had a tough time with things like that, her finding a happy medium with having sleepovers and hanging out with guys, because there's only a certain point to which parents are comfortable, especially, I guess it's a Southern thing, and then they won't go any further. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, I mean, at this point, basically, they just see her like she's a tomboy kind of thing?
Yeah, they just kind of see her as a tomboy, and they think, I guess they think if they let her sleep over or something, she's going to turn on her womanly wiles and deflower their virginal preteens. I don't know. But so that's our biggest challenge, is finding friends and finding that happy medium where she can have a normal friendship with somebody.
Yeah. Well, and I'm guessing, at this point, because we're using, she, her pronouns, there hasn't been a ton of discussion surrounding, like, I want to be called he, or I want to be called they, or, whatever other set of pronouns, or any kind of, changing name or anything like that. Do you think that would complicate things?
I don't think it would complicate things for me, because we've talked about changing pronouns and we've talked about changing names, and it's going to be, I think, difficult for me more so than anybody else to get over calling her and call her a he, because she's expressed the idea that she wants to be a he, and I know this is not good on my part. I'm having more trouble with it than anybody, and I think once I get over that, I can help everybody else get over that, deal with it. Her grandparents are going to be a really different story. Her grandparents are not very accepting of any of this right now. And her biological dad is pretty resistant to it. So it's not that I'm resistant to calling her different pronouns. It's just difficult for me, because for 12 years she's been her, and so it's just it's going to be hard for me. But her dad is really resistant to it, and her grandparents are really resistant to it.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing to point out. When I talk about my experience with my own mom, I have literally nothing bad to say about my mom's handling of my transition and my coming out and everything like that, because her standpoint was always, if this is what you need to do to be happy, then this is what I want you to do. But she's also human. She's also a human, and she has feelings of her own, and she's allowed to struggle with, knowing me as one thing for 28 years and having this radical shift. Like, she's allowed to have, her own feelings about that may not necessarily be all rosy and happy, because that's hard. And I think that's an important thing to understand. I don't think it's fair for everyone to just be expected to flip a switch and everything's fine.
Yeah, and it's not that I don't have rosy feelings. I feel exactly the way your mom expressed that she felt. If this makes Emma happy, if that's who she wants to be, I'm going to support her 100% and stand behind her 100%. It's just a mind switch for me to get from he to she. It's just that I got to flip that switch, and I haven't yet.
Well, yeah, and I have to imagine that as a parent too, there's a lot of worries surrounding, social interactions and stuff like that. It's not even a matter of you having to figure out how to accept who she is, because I feel like you're pretty much there. It's more like, how am I going to help her navigate, this social thing, because I've been in groups with parents of trans kids, and it's kind of heart-wrenching to hear them talk about, I have no problem accepting my kid for whoever they are. If they want to change their name 10 times, if they want to change their pronoun 10 times, whatever. Today you're he, tomorrow you're she, because you're still working on figuring it out. That's all fine. I have no problem with that. But I'm really worried about school, or I'm really worried about friends. I'm worried about romantic relationships and all of that stuff that teenagers go through. So, what are your... have you spent a lot... that's probably a stupid question. I'm sure you've spent a lot of time thinking about that.
Are you asking maybe what my biggest worry is for her?
Well, yeah, kind of.
Okay.
What is it that your biggest worry? Because obviously you don't have a problem accepting her for whoever she ends up figuring out she is.
Right. I don't know. I guess my biggest worry, but I don't know. I don't worry about her any more exponentially than I worry about any of my other kids, especially when it comes to love or relationships, because those in middle school and high school are so hard to deal with anyway. I know that her situation is going to add an extra layer to that difficulty, but it's so difficult as it is that I worry the same about my son, who is cis, as I do Emma, who is transgender, because it's equally hard, and each person has their own path they have to take, and that path is going to be hard, and she's not going to know, oh, well, it would have been easier if I had just not chosen this path. Does that make sense? Because I don't know. I know everybody's path is going to be equally hard for them, and she's not going to know the difference. So I just worry about her as a teenager.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because as a person who came out as an adult, I came out when I was 28. But, for me, I remember what it was like navigating the world as someone who at least appeared on the outside to be like your average cis guy. And, kind of navigating dating, that kind of stuff. That's complicated enough as it is. And then now I have the other side. I have, sort of both perspectives. It changes a little bit. Obviously, like, I can't say that I know exactly what it's like to, navigate the dating world as your average cis guy because that's never what I've been. But I've at least been able to kind of live in that world. Whereas, coming out and trying to navigate that world as a teenager, so not really ever knowing any different, I think that's a really interesting thing because I could see in a lot of ways that maybe would make it harder because you can see you can still see what your peers are going through,
right?
And knowing that your experience is different and that your experience is probably more difficult, but at the same time, you don't necessarily know that it could be any different. From your own experience, so I could kind of see both sides to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's what I hope for her, is that her journey won't be any more difficult than Ian's journey because she won't know, if I was cis, it wouldn't be as difficult for me. That's what I hope for her, and I guess that's my worry, is that it will be more difficult for her. But I don't give it a lot of thought. I don't give it a lot of, I don't give a lot of life to that worry. I try to let her live her life as she is. And we deal with whatever problem comes up when it comes up. And I don't meditate on, I guess that's the word I'm looking for, on how hard things could be for her or how hard things wouldn't be for her if she wasn't the way that she is.
See, that's why I don't think I could ever handle being a parent, because that's exactly what I would do. Like, I am that kind of warrior. I would be up every single night. Oh my god, this is going to be so terrible. Like,
I don't know. We've had some rough things happen the kids have been through some things in their lives. Like, they've been through a divorce. They've been through times when we haven't had money. They've been through so many things that I think Emma is equipped to handle lots of things. She knows how to deal with disappointment and problems, and so all those experiences have given her a solid basis for which to handle any other problems that come up. Because a lot of those problems that Emma's gone through, we live in a pretty affluent community, and we are not affluent. Please don't get me wrong. We just kind of ended up here through a lot of different circumstances, but the community that we live in is pretty affluent, and Emma knows what it is not to be the rich kid, not to be the well-off kid. She knows what it is to eat ramen for a week, and I know that has nothing to do with being transgender, but those experiences of being different and being not like everybody else, not, give her the ability to handle not being like everybody else when it comes to sexuality.
Yeah,
Today in school, I learned a lot. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me. In English, I learned that I'm disgusting. And in physics, I learned that I'm a loser.
Today in school, I learned that I'm ugly and useless. And in gym, I learned that I'm pathetic and a joke. In history, I learned that I'm trash.
Today in school, I learned that I have no friends.
In biology,
In English, I learned that I make people sick. And at lunch, I learned that I sit on my own because I smell. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me.
In biology, I learned that I'm fat and stupid. And in math, I learned that I'm trash.
The only thing I didn't learn in school today?
The only thing I didn't learn today.
The only thing I didn't learn
is why no one ever helps.
Kids witness bullying every day. They want to help, but they don't know how. Teach them how to stop bullying and be more than a bystander at stopbullying.gov.
The staff of Secular Coalition for America lobbies U.S. Congress on issues of separation of church and state, and they've become a powerhouse for change in the United States government. You'll definitely want to subscribe to receive their email action alerts. These are updates for important issues and ones that you can get involved with directly. And hopefully, you'll consider making a contribution to the Secular Coalition for America to help them continue fighting for your equality. You can do it all at secular.org.
I have a question for you, Sharon, if you don't mind me asking. I hear a lot from parents of trans children especially, but also like their children who have grown up to become adults, that when the child expresses to them that they're transgender, or they come out, or it just becomes apparent that this child needs to transition, that the parents feel kind of a sense of mourning, like they're losing their daughter or their son and gaining, whatever gender it is that this person identifies as. Is that something that you've gone through? And if so, could you maybe explain a little bit more about that? Because it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, seeing as the person is still exactly the same person. You're just calling them by a different name or different pronouns, and they might look a little different.
I haven't been through that because Emma's been the way that she is ever since she was a little girl, and we've had the conversations over and over again about what we're going to do about pronouns, what we're going to do about names, how we're going to live our life. So, I mean, that's been ongoing since she was little, so I haven't had to deal with that. But I can tell you as a parent, if that had not been ongoing and Emma was 16 and she told me, Mom, I need to be who I really am, and I need to change sexes, I need to change my name. I could see how I could mourn that, because, you carry this person and you name this person lots of times before they're even born, and you have these expectations, whether that's the right thing to do or not. You still have these expectations of who this person is going to be, and then all of a sudden, this person that you carried inside you, that you called Emma from the time she was, conceived, is no longer wanting to be that person. So you feel, I can see how you could feel a little like disappointed and sad, because maybe you did something wrong, or you didn't give them enough choices, or I can see lots of emotions happening. I don't know about mourning. I don't know that I would ever mourn, but I can see how those emotions would happen.
I can shed some light on this, because I had two pretty significant, actually I'd say probably 3 or 4 pretty significant relationships where there was a lot of conversation surrounding the mourning thing, and maybe this is getting a little off topic with the kids thing, but who cares, because it's an important discussion. Because I think this applies just as much to friends and other family as it does to parents, and maybe not as much. Because obviously, the parent is, kind of the quintessential human relationship in most cases. But, we all grow up in, and this is something I think I've said a lot, we all grow up in this society that is way, way obsessed with gender and gender roles, right? And so we all, to some degree get invested in those things, right? So I can see when, when someone gets pregnant and they think like, you know what, like I'm okay with boy or girl, I don't really care, and that can be a sincere thought, boy or girl, don't care, just want a healthy, happy baby, right? But when you find out that you're having a boy or you're having a girl, you immediately invest your expectations into that based on, what society's gender roles are supposed to be for boys or girls.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a good thing, I don't think. It's definitely not evil. I mean, no one's thinking like, oh, I'm going to force gender roles on my child. It's a lot. it's a lot
Probably
more
some
subtle.
people actually are thinking that, but
well, right, some
thing.
are for sure. But I think in most cases, it's just like, oh, like I'm going to have a little boy, so it's going to be super fun with construction trucks and baseball and football and sports and hunting and Transformers and G.I. Joes or like, oh, having a girl is going to be so much fun with tea parties and dresses and princesses and all of that kind of stuff. And when you invest so much into this and you find out like, oh, that's not actually the case, I think there is, even for someone who is 100%, like my mom, for example, 100% supportive, I want you to do this because this is what you need to be happy, there's still that having to let go of what your expectations were.
Right.
And I mean, I had that experience with my mom. I had that experience with a few of my best friends. I had that experience with someone that I used to be in a relationship with, but I'm still very, very close to. You sort of build that relationship based on what those gender roles are in a way. And I mean, we can have a discussion about whether or not that's a good or a bad thing. I think it's probably a little bit of both, depending on, what you want. But I think it's just more of a, so, we live our entire lives based on these expectations, and all of a sudden that gets upended. And at the very least, I think it's really understandable for that to be an uncomfortable experience for someone. And because we think so much that gender defines people, right? And for some people it does, for some people it doesn't, and either one is fine. But for most of our society, people think that gender defines the person. So if it turns out that you're not the gender I think you are, and you're going to transition, you're going to look different, you're going to have surgery to have your body altered, you're going to go on hormones, you're going to talk differently, then like it's really hard to separate that from the idea of you're becoming a different person. And I think a lot of times it takes being with someone through their transition to see that, I mean, I had a couple of friends who told me, like, I feel like, one of my friends in particular told me, I feel like I'm losing one of my best friends and being forced to accept this person that kind of looks and sounds like him, but I don't really know.
Right. And I've had parents of other kids give me strange reactions because of Emma, because she doesn't conform to these gender roles, because she dresses like a boy, talks like a boy, plays with boys, does boy things. They have these expectations of, before they meet us, they know that I have 2 daughters and a son for right now, and that they don't expect that. So there's always an adjustment period there for people that we meet for the first time. And I think that's the same for people that you love. There's always going to be that adjustment period. And so, like I said, in the South, people smile and nod, and they've generally publicly accepted Emma. I've never had anybody say anything about her, but I'm sure that behind our backs, they've said things. In fact, I know they have, because people have told me before. Right. But, I think there's an adjustment period for everybody, whether they know you or they don't.
Yeah, that's true. And I think just like a lot of things, because coming out on the other side of it, I had, that same friend that told me that, he felt like he was being forced to accept this person he didn't know. After a few months, 6-8 months maybe, it was like, yeah, now I kind of feel like an asshole for having felt like that. Because, like, what was I worried about? Yeah. You're still, sure, you look a lot different and you sound different and whatever, but like you're still the same person, really. And
yeah,
and I think that even extends a little bit to, general society. Like, you get this idea about what a trans person is in your head, and then you finally meet a trans person, and then you think like, oh wow, like they're just a person. That's not what I expected. Like,
yeah.
Like, yeah, you know what? I binge watched Supernatural with my girlfriend, just like you do. Like,
Well, I think if we could find a way when people do transition to call it rebranding instead of transitioning, it might be a little easier for people to handle.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty brilliant.
Callie, right, TM. Oh, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
So I wonder, has there been any discussion of a physical transition, or has that come up at all?
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to talk about myself for just a second.
Please do.
I am built really weird. I'm a big girl. I have big boobs, big butt, big everything. And my daughters, luckily, both of them are like thin. Emma has no boobs, no butt, no nothing. So right now she's pretty comfortable with the way she looks because she doesn't have a lot of the quote-unquote female features. But we haven't talked about it. It's not out of the question. I don't have a problem with it. If she wants to, start taking hormones, we'll go to the doctor and get on those. But fortunately for her, she's physically not like her mother. So she can look the part without too much physical alteration right now.
Man, God, I wish I wish that, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm jealous of both my girls. I mean, I'm glad they look that way because, it's societally acceptable, but I'm jealous of them. They're both cute.
Stop it. You're cute too.
Oh, thank you.
So, so you're not, I mean, even the idea, you're not really worried about, like, if testosterone comes up, or, because there's a lot of stigma surrounding the idea of kids, like even teenagers, and, physical transition and that kind of stuff. And I feel like some of those worries are a little justified. Some of those worries are overblown, that kind of stuff. But there's not, I mean, like, so you mentioned hormones. I mean, what about surgeries? Is that like?
I'm not opposed to it. If that's what she wants, we'll research it and we'll go do it. But I don't think it's something she's interested in right now. Right now, this may be TMI. Right now, we're dealing with
no such thing on this show.
Right now, we're dealing with periods and
right.
Trying to get through that. If she wants that to stop, like now, so we're having that. Oh, she doesn't like that. Yeah. So, but
that's a common thing with trans masculine folks that causes a lot of dysphoria.
Yeah, I mean, would that be considered dysphoria to be like upset because you have a period and wanting it? Is that what's classified as dysphoria, or is dysphoria something else?
What dysphoria is basically any kind of discomfort that you have based on the gender characteristics or sex characteristics that you have that you don't want.
Oh, okay.
So
right.
like, the fact that like I'm a fat chick with small boobs, like it's actually like, because there's so much talk about, bottom surgery for trans women, but I actually feel a lot more dysphoria surrounding my chest than I do my genital area. So it's, it's very different for everyone. But yeah, I mean, that's a very common thing that you hear trans masculine folks talk about. So yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, not uncommon at all. Yeah, because, and like I said, the reason that I bring it up is there's a ton of stigma about, as a kid, I didn't know who I was as a kid, and all of those kind of, like, there's like a small little grain of truth in that, but it's being used as an excuse to deny someone something that's pretty essential, because, all all the studies that are out there show that, you know, if you embrace trans kids and accept them for who they are, they end up happy because...
Shocker!
Like,
Yeah.
Because no shit.
Who would have imagined that?
But, you know, and I think there's probably maybe some misnomers about what exactly transition looks like for trans kids. And a lot of people don't even realize, like, most of the time surgeons won't touch anyone until they're 18, period. Sometimes with parental permission, you can 16 or 17-year-old with parental permission, you know, they'll do some kinds of surgeries. But you know, there's a lot of talk about, you know, well, what if these kids change their mind, blah, blah, blah. What if they do? And you know what? Fair enough. Some do. Most don't. Some do. But, like, most of the time, it ends up just being what your situation looks like, Sharon. Somebody wants to dress differently. They want to cut their hair differently. They want to talk differently. Maybe even use a different name and a different set of pronouns. Like, none of that stuff is irreversible if someone changes their mind. And it means so much more to accept that and let those kids express themselves that way than, you know, whatever risk may be mitigated by denying them that. And most of the time when hormones start, it's not cross-sex hormone therapy, it's puberty blockers. So you delay puberty until 15, 16-ish to make sure, while there's intensive therapy going on and all of this kind of stuff, and then right about then you start cross-sex hormone therapy. And there's a great TED Talk. The title of it escapes me off the top of my head. I'll put a link to it in the show notes, where there is a doctor who treats trans kids, and he talks about how when you let these kids be who they are and you let them lead on who they are, they turn out almost no different at all from other kids, because there's that little bit of discomfort of, you know, well, this isn't who I am, and immediately it's addressed and taken care of. So it doesn't become this traumatic thing. It doesn't become this huge deal. It's just, okay, here's the situation, and here's what we got to do to fix it. And you see pictures of these kids, and they're happy, and they're playing, and they, and, you know, this is a bad, I feel bad for pointing this out as a good thing, but they look generally cis-normative, right? Which we definitely shouldn't be like trying to make ourselves look cis-normative I mean, you know, that's society's problem, not our problem. But the fact is, like, that means there are going to be less problems for these kids. So I think at least partially that's kind of a good thing. So. Right.
But I mean, wouldn't it be the goal of a parent, not that cis-normative is where you want your kid to be, but wouldn't it be the goal of a parent of a transgender kid to get their kid to the point where they would be mistaken for cis-normative because they're so confident in who they are? And I mean, to me, that's my, I don't want Emma to be cis-normative because that's what I want her to be. I want her to be so comfortable in who she is that she could be mistaken for cis-normative.
And I think that's the point. Yeah.
Right.
The point is, you want your kid to be happy because that's what a good parent wants for their kid. Like, it's really that simple. And, you know, as much as we talk about, you know, cis-normative, because the idea of expecting people to be cis-normative, I'm not okay with foisting that expectation on people. But if that's what someone wants, I'm also not going to look at that as a bad thing. You know, I have a very cis...
I am down with cis.
Die, cis scum.
Exactly. Truer words were never spoken.
But, you know, I mean, that's a lot of my dysphoria surrounds that. And I have, you know, conversations a lot of times with people when we're talking about surgeries and stuff like that. And it's like, even after the transition is quote unquote complete, and I've had whatever surgeries and stuff I want to have, there's no surgery to make my shoulders less broad or to make my hands smaller. So, like, that's something that I'm going to have to deal with for the rest of my life. You know, and it would make things much more comfortable and easier on me and my, you know, vision of self if I were able to fix those things. But that's just out of what technology can do right now. So it's something I'm just going to have to learn to live with.
Well, if it makes you feel better, Callie, I am cis, and I have really broad shoulders and sausage finger hands. So I am not happy with my shoulders or my hands. So it's not a transgender thing either. It's a everybody thing.
Yeah, well, and I mean, honestly, that does kind of make me feel better, because that's there have been so many times where I'll complain about something, and it's like you know, I don't want to diminish your feelings or anything like that, but like, welcome to being a woman.
Yeah,
you kind of signed up for this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that's what I'm saying in a roundabout way, but I have those features that you don't like, so we can be sisters.
Right. No, I'm good with that. I will absolutely claim you as a sister. So, one thing that I always like to do when I'm talking to people who have an experience that I have zero reference for, one being a parent, because the idea of being a parent absolutely terrifies me. It's the most important job in the world, and one that I am wholly unqualified for. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you think is important to talk about? Something that, you know, coming from my experience of, I mean, not really even knowing what it's like to be a parent, let alone a parent with a trans kid. Like, is there anything we haven't covered that you think might be important to talk about?
No, the only thing I was thinking that I didn't say that I'd like to say is that I do have a concern about Emma whenever she's in middle school and they have to take PE all 3 years, and I have a feeling before she reaches 8th grade, we're going to have the talk with the school about which dressing room she gets to use, and I guess that's on par with the bathroom issue.
Right.
So that's we haven't talked any about that, and that's one of my concerns is she going to be allowed to use the dressing room that she feels like she is the gender of. How do you feel about the bathroom? I know how you feel about the bathroom issue, but how would you handle that?
That's
well, you being in Georgia, it's pretty scary for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty scared about that, because I know when I go to the school, it's going to be, no, she has to stay in the girls' dressing room. But here's my thing. Why is that? Why? Is it because of sexuality? Because the boys might hurt her? Because she beats up her fair share of boys. Believe me, she's taken care of her brother before. So I'm not worried about that. Is it the sexuality thing? Is it because, you know, they might do something to her, she might do something to them sexually? Because she hasn't picked a gender that she has romantic feelings for yet, and she may never, and I'm okay with that, whatever she wants. But what if she decides that she has romantic feelings for girls, and they keep her stuck in the dressing room with girls? And, you know, why is nobody worried about
there are already lesbians in the dressing rooms with other girls, and nobody's freaking out about that.
Yeah.
Well, right, and I think that's the question. That's the thing that doesn't get brought up a lot when you talk about that kind of thing, is like, because if you're going to segregate trans people from dressing rooms and from bathrooms, like, if you're going to be logically consistent, you should be segregating cisgender gay people in restrooms and locker rooms as well, because if that's really your concern about, you know, sex and sexuality and that kind of stuff, like, if that's really your concern, why are you only concerned about trans people? And
right.
And I think it's probably because they haven't really taken the time to give it any thought, because they think like, well, you know, gay people exist, but they're some other group that's like, you know, there's only gay people in like New York and San Francisco. There's no gay people anywhere else. So I don't even think it's a thing that people think of generally, but I think it's a fantastic point to bring up. Like, there are gay boys changing in the locker room with other boys, and doesn't seem to have been a problem, you know what I mean? So like, what is the deal? What is the problem? You know, and I mean, and I can tell you probably what they're going to say is it comes down to, you know, boys and girls are different and blah, blah, blah. And
yeah.
All the really toxic stuff that we hear about, you know, our bodies being shameful and dirty, and sexuality is bad, and all of that kind of stupid stuff. But
right.
I mean, I would guess imagine... Sorry, go ahead, Ari.
I would guess that they would probably say, oh, it's for her own safety because, boys can't control themselves when they see a half-naked female around.
Yeah, like Emma. Emma would never be half-naked. She wears undershirts and boxer shorts, and she never takes them off. So, she would probably see nakedness before anybody would see her naked.
Right.
Yeah, and I can't imagine going up against a school district for that, especially in a place like Georgia. I can't imagine.
And here's a rub on that whole scenario. I work in the school systems that she goes to school in. So not only would I be going up against the school system, I'd be going up against my employer, which could make things more difficult for me. So it's a whole fun situation that I have to deal with that. So
multidimensional.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't even.
Yeah. Get out of Georgia. Do it.
I'm trying. I really am trying. I hate it here. We call it disgusta, but
oh, that's good. I enjoy that. Well, Sharon, I really appreciate you taking the time, being so honest and open with your story and with Emma's story. And we definitely wish you all the best. Are you familiar at all with any resources for for kids, for parents, that kind of stuff? So if there's someone listening who has a similar situation, where they might be able to go, or are you familiar with any of those kind of resources?
I haven't really needed them, so I'm not too familiar. I'm sorry. That makes me sound like a bad
you're
parent.
Well, if you haven't needed them and everything's been okay, then that's great. Those resources shouldn't have to exist, right? The whole reason that we do activism is to eventually put ourselves out of business. So that's fine.
Worst business model ever.
Yeah.
Which is why capitalists hate us. So I would mention two major national support organizations that have local chapters all over the place. One is called PFLAG. It's Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. PFLAG is a fantastic organization, and their whole thing is basically being a space for not only the LGBT individual, but their family, their friends, their support network to kind of come together and figure things out and talk out feelings and that kind of stuff. And they're a fantastic organization. I can't recommend them highly enough. I did a talk at Cincinnati's chapter a couple of weeks ago about the podcast and what we do with activism and stuff like that. And it was a really, really great experience. There's also an organization called GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network. They have chapters all over the place. They do youth support groups, and their whole thing is safe schools for LGBT youth. So they do a lot surrounding anti-bullying. If anyone's familiar with the Day of Silence, where people are silent in solidarity with LGBT kids who have been bullied, that's a GLSEN thing. In Cincinnati, at least, and this is probably a national thing, they do they call it a safe space soiree. And then they do the GLSEN prom, which is an all-inclusive prom for LGBT kids if they don't feel safe or welcome in their own environments, going to proms and that kind of stuff. We kind of throw that for the kids there, so they've got a place to go. So GLSEN and PFLAG are two really, really great organizations that have local chapters kind of all over the United States. I know we have some listeners who are outside of the United States, and I apologize. I am a terrible person. I know basically nothing about international resources.
That's kind of their fault for not being American.
Right, yeah. That's exactly. So
you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. And
America.
And I know, Sharon, we haven't really spent any time talking about your podcast, so let's do that real quick for a minute. Plug your show. Tell us about what's going on there.
Oh, well, we're just, it's just me and Kate the Bluegrass Skeptic and Joe Kendick and Adam Fusion, and we just talk about whatever blows our skirts up for that week. We don't have really a set format or anything that we really push, like you guys push the
gay agenda.
The gay agenda.
The gay agenda. There you go.
We own it. No reason to sugarcoat it. Nope.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to make it sound like that.
No, you're fine. No, we're just openly admitting that we're part of a larger conspiracy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, and well, we're not part of the gay agenda. We just have a good time and hope that everybody who listens to us has a good time too.
Cool. So, where can we go online to find the show, find you?
We have a webpage. It's www.utbbpodcast.com. You can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/UTBB. You can find us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/UTBB. And I think we're in the normal places. That's about it that I can think of for special places that we are.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for
having me.
Yeah, and thanks for being so open and honest. That's totally our thing here. So, I think that makes for the best discussion. So, that, my friends, is going to do it for this episode of the Gaytheist Manifesto on Secular Media Network. I want to say thank you again to my co-host Ari.
Thank you very much.
And again, big thanks out to Sharon Bush for taking the time to be with us. You can find the show on Facebook at facebook.com/thegaytheistmanifesto. You can email us at thegaytheistmanifesto@gmail.com. I am on Twitter at GaytheistCallie.
Somewhere over the rainbow, you can find a computer, and then you can go on Facebook and friend me, Ari Coleman, and see some dank memes. That's it.
And you can find the show on Twitter at The Gaytheists. If you want to support the activism that we do, support the show, you can go to patreon.com/thegaytheistmanifesto and make a per-episode contribution as little as $1 per episode and support the activism that we do. Big shout out to our newest patrons this week, Gary, Brittany, and David. Thank you guys so much. If financial support isn't in the cards, that's okay. You can go to iTunes, leave us a 5-star review. That helps us get heard by lots more people, which is kind of why we're here. Before we go, I want you to know that if you're lost, you're hurting, you're scared, if you feel like no one cares and no one understands, you need to know there's a community out here that loves you, cares for you, knows that you're capable of amazing things and that you are worthy of love. If you're struggling, please don't be afraid to reach out. Until next time, friends, this is the Gaytheist Manifesto.